everybody. See the red subscribe down below? Click it. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Shannon Confidential. I am Shannon, your host, and Shannon Confidential is a podcast about life, love, and everything in between. And today, our in between we're going to talk about is running, lots of running, with Dr. Jason Karp. Now, his story starts, he was a young kid on a track in New Jersey, and that just sparked a passion of athletic performance that has taken him to where he is today. He is a professional speaker, an author of countless books, and some of the titles are pretty interesting. I can't wait to ask him about a couple of them. He, like I said, he's been speaking around the world. He has competed. He is a silver medal winner. I have to ask him about that too. He has created so many running programs, and I'm just going to let him dive right into it and just learn all the certifications and all the training that he's done with just college up to professional. Just he really is incredible. He knows everything in the world there's possible to know about running, and a whole program that's made just for women. I want to know, how do women really run differently? Guess we'll find out. Can't wait to introduce you.
All right, here he is, Dr. Jason Karp. I am so excited. I have 1,000,001 questions for you, and I thank you so much for being on Shannon Confidential. I truly, truly appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So I have to tell you, you are one professional author, writer, trainer, program developer. Where do we start?
It's a good question. Well, everything with me starts with running. Since I was a kid, I was lucky I found something from a young age that I was very passionate about and interested in and curious about. And that's what really put me on a yellow brick road that I'm still following all these years later.
I love it. So is it, when it comes to running, and I'm going to ask just a question. I'm an athlete. Like I said on our intro call, I played soccer, traveled, did all of that. But running is not necessarily sports. Is it a sport in and of its own? Like, is it long distance? What was it that you fell in love with?
It was a few things. It was the freeing nature of it. Running is the purest form of sport. There's no implements. There's not a lot of strategy. Some distance races, there's some strategy, but it's the basis of most other sports, and it's the purest form of it. And so just the freeing nature of being able to go out and run and try to run as fast as you can. As a kid, I was a sprinter, and just to try to run as fast as you can is very freeing. It's very purifying. It's just this release of all-out physical effort. There's nothing really else that comes close to that. And then as I got a little older, I became more interested in the science of it. How does somebody get faster? And so, because it is so pure, because there's not a lot of strategy, it's all really about the physiology. It's about the fitness. A lot of other sports, especially like in college, they have their team coach, and then they have a strength and conditioning coach.
True.
But with running is all about strength and conditioning. It's all about conditioning. It's all about improving your fitness. The one who crosses the finish line first is the person who's most fit. And so there's a lot of science and physiology involved in that. And that's what I became really interested in, is how can somebody train in such a way that they can improve their fitness? Whereas in other sports, that's not always the case. Like the team that wins a football game is not necessarily the fittest team. Because there's so much else going on. There's a lot of strategy going on. But with running, it's all about improving your fitness, and that's a scientific endeavor.
So how do you even start with that? Where did you get into the science of running?
Well, that too started at a young age. I knew when I was in high school that I wanted to study this. I didn't know exactly what job I would have, but I knew that this was the field I wanted to pursue. So I was very careful about the schools I went to. I was looking for the best exercise science or kinesiology departments around the country. And I wanted to study under the best because I wanted to be the best. And so I was very
kind of getting that impression from you.
I was very careful about where I went to school. You know, it interests me that most people, regardless of what field that they're in, a lot of people just go to school close to where they live because they want to be close to their family or because it's cheaper. Most people don't really seek out the best schools for the subject matter that they want to study. And I did. I took that approach. You know, I didn't care where it was. I wanted to just go to where I felt had the strongest reputation so that I could become the best myself. And so that's why I said I was put on this yellow brick road. I followed the road wherever it led me. And so I went to these schools that I would not have gone to otherwise, and so that I could learn and study from the best.
So I know you've coached. You've been a very, very successful coach. You've taken, teams to pretty good accolades there. So congratulations. So when you were coaching, did you find it, how different is when you're coaching yourself, because you run, you compete yourself, and then you became a very successful coach, and we'll go into, the programs that you've created to certify coaches, but what's harder, training yourself or training a team?
Well, training yourself, I think, is definitely harder because you're so close to it. Like even after all these years, I'm still trying to figure out what's the best stimulus for me as a runner. So it's much better for someone to have a coach, to have that objectivity, and it's much easier to coach other people than to coach yourself, definitely.
And you obviously you enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I very much enjoyed. I mean, my first job was as a college coach. I was 24 years old in New Jersey, and I got a job coaching a women's cross country team, and it was a little weird because I was only a couple years older than the
I was
seniors.
going to say you were 24.
Yeah, so the seniors on the team, they were 21, 22. I just graduated with my master's degree, and so I was only a couple years older than the oldest girls on the team. So yeah, it was a little weird from that perspective because I was more like their peer than their coach. But I just had to establish that that divide right away, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to coach a team and be in that team environment. And cross country is such a fun sport to coach. And it was great.
Tell me the science behind cross country coaching. I know it probably seems like second nature to you, besides for just go out and run. And I'm really curious about the whole science behind it because many, many years ago, I did the Disney Half Marathon and a couple of runs with some girlfriends of mine. And the two of them, they loved running. To me, I had to fight for every step. I had to put the music on. I had to completely tune out just to keep myself not hearing myself breathe. If I could hear myself breathe, it would freak me out and then it would make me even more tired. It's probably all mental, I get it. But so how do you coach somebody into being faster, running longer, winning? How would you have coached me?
Yeah, well, a lot of it starts with the conditioning. I mean, that's the first thing. I mean, it's the body that really leads the brain. A lot of people like to say that it's a psychological sport that's all in your mind, but it's not really. It's all in your body. I mean, you got to physically run. I mean, it's as physical as it gets. Running is as physical as it gets. And so it starts with the body. It starts with understanding, aerobic metabolism versus anaerobic metabolism, and the structuring of the training program around that, and depending on the distance of the race, cross country usually for college, the women run 5K, or the bigger races they run 6K, and so just understanding what goes into racing that distance, and so structuring the aerobic work and then the speed work later on, and bringing the athlete to a peak for when it counts the most. It's a very scientific endeavor to how to put the pieces of the training program together, but it all starts with the basic conditioning and improving your aerobic fitness.
And some people say, like, when I do go to the gym, because I do not like working out at a gym, but if I do go to a gym and I'm going to do any kind of aerobic activity, I will hop on the treadmill. But I do sprints, then I'll run slower, and then I'll pick it up for a certain amount of seconds, and then I'll slow down, then I'll pick it back up and go even faster. Not like the Bionic Woman or anything, but it's not just I hop on a treadmill and I just start running for 30 minutes. What would you say? Some people say doing that different training, the different speeds is better. Some people like to just run straight out. Some people say do it at an incline. Is there any perfect way?
No, but it's a combination of perfect. I mean, when you put all the pieces together, you can have this perfect way, but there's not any one workout that's perfect. It's just how all those workouts are put together in the context of an entire training program. So it all depends on what your goals are. For the average person going to the gym, yeah, it's more fun to do that. most people aren't going to want to go on the treadmill and just go easy for 30 minutes or whatever. It's
I
much
can't,
more
I get
fun.
too bored.
Right, yeah. It's much more fun to change the speeds, especially to do it like in tune with the music, if you're listening to music or something. And that's very effective, to improve your fitness pretty quickly. But, if you want to race, a longer distance race, then there has to be a lot of the easy, slow running as a part of the entire training program. Because that's
Okay.
what gives you the aerobic boost. That's what improves all the aerobic fitness. But then you put all that speed work on top of a strong aerobic base of fitness. So it all depends on what you're training for, whether it's weight loss or just having fun and getting fit, or if you're looking to race a certain distance. But you got to ultimately have all of it, and it's how all those pieces come together and how you plan that out throughout the year. That's what makes the perfection. That's what makes the magic happen.
Well, you just said plan it throughout the year. What is say if someone decided to do a 5K? I guess the question would be, it depends on where their fitness level starts, but what's the appropriate training time? Put it this way, I don't run, but I do hike, and I do like very, very challenging hikes. I've done the rim to rim in the Grand Canyon. I've hiked Zion, and I'll start training a year ahead and then really, really start pushing it. What is a good advanced training time to start if you wanted to start running in a race, you want to compete in some way?
Yeah, well, that too depends on where your starting point is. If you've never run before, then you have to give yourself more time than somebody who already has been running for 10 years. And so it depends on the starting point, depends on the goal, how fast you want to be. Like somebody could train for a 5K in a matter of weeks, but if they want to become really good at it, it's going to take many, many, many months. So it all depends on the person's goals, their starting point, the distance of the race that they're training for. Depends on a lot of different factors. But the 5K, you could go from your couch to a 5K in a matter of weeks. It won't take that long, especially if the person's running every day.
Yeah.
If they're not running every day, then they have to give themselves more time. Because if someone runs 3 days a week, that's great, but it'll take twice as long to get fit versus someone who's running 6 days a week. So they just have to give themselves more time if they're running 3 days a week to prepare for it.
Okay. So I know I read all about you. You, like I said, you've spoken around the world. You've developed programs and written a large number of books, some of them with very interesting titles. You basically have running, and then I believe one of them is sexercise. You've written a book about everything that has to do with running.
Yeah, like I look for holes in the marketplace. And so it's funny you bring up that book, Sexercise, but I'm fascinated by, I think that the two best expressions of humans is running, one, from a physical activity perspective, and then obviously we have to have sex to continue the species. One of the best expressions of who we are. I mean, without sex, the species doesn't continue. And there's a reason why it is such a strong urge to have sex. There's an urge there to make sure that we do it, to make sure that we continue humanity. And so there's actually a lot of overlap between, especially like with the hormonal response to sex and exercise and how one contributes to the other. And there's been plenty of research on how exercise, especially intense exercise, improves your sexual performance, it improves libido, it improves all the things, regarding sex. And so I wanted to merge these two things and look at it from a physiology perspective to see, how does exercise improve our sex life? Why should we do it? And so, yeah, it's a funny little title, and people may laugh at it, but I really wanted to take it. What?
I found it interesting. Yeah, it's a catchy title, no doubt, but looking at all the other books you wrote, there clearly was research behind it. I knew that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of research in that sexercise. I have about 200 references in there. I mean, I spent a lot of time delving into the sexology. I mean, there are people who study this around the country and around the world. They're called sexologists. That's a real field of science. It's to study the science behind sex and understanding, like, how did it, like one of the things I talk about in the book is how did an orgasm evolve? I mean, these things had to evolve. It wasn't just placed there. And so to understand how orgasms evolved and why we're meant to do it, and how the hormonal response from exercise affects our libido and affects our sexual performance. I mean, it's a fascinating area of research, and talking to these researchers around the country who do this. I mean, think about how fun of a job that is. They have subjects in the lab, and they put instruments in certain places to measure sexual response. You know, it's fascinating. That area of research is fascinating.
Wow. So is that research done on people?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of studies where they'll have, you know, groups of people, and first they'll have them watch a sexual video. I mean, first have them exercise, and then they'll have them watch the sexual video, and then they repeat that, watching the sexual video without exercise first, and they'll measure, like one of the things they measure is vaginal pulse amplitude and vaginal blood flow to see the response to sexual stimulation when people are watching a video compared to when they exercise first versus when they didn't exercise first, to look at the differences. And it's fascinating how the sexual response, even to just watching it, not even to doing, just to watching a video on this, is greater when you exercise right before watching the video. It's fascinating.
Well, yeah, that actually probably makes sense, because I can tell you, I can be absolutely exhausted. And last thing I want to do is work out, even if it's just a quick 30-minute workout right here at the house. But after I've worked out, even if I start off exhausted, you feel energized and rejuvenated. So I see how that could transition over.
Yeah, there's so much research, and even just the psychological aspect of exercise, how it makes you feel more confident, not
That's
just
true.
yeah, and it's not just interacting with people. It's also it makes you more confident in the bedroom. You feel more comfortable about who you are.
Because you feel fit and you're proud. And yeah.
Exactly. There's so much research that, and this has always been my one criticism of scientists, that, you know, they're not on social media. They're not out in the public. They're doing great research, but they're too busy hanging out in their ivory towers. You know, and I took a different approach when I finished my doctorate. You know, I wanted to work with the public. I didn't want to spend all my life in an ivory tower doing research. And so I'm also critical of the scientists, because it takes so long to get the research out into the public domain. Most people have no idea about this research that's going on and how it can help them live a better life. And so that's what I wanted to do with the books I write. Look for holes in the marketplace, what's not being talked about, and then combine that with my background, my expertise, and then merge the two and write books that, I don't want to write a book that's already been written. That's already been done. There's a million books on fitness and weight loss. Why would I want to write a book that's already been done?
True.
You know, I want to write books that have not been written, that give the public information that they're not normally going to get.
I have to tell you, it's piqued my curiosity. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So now I know you started the new company, as you see behind me. And you pronounce it?
Kyniska.
Kyniska. How did you come up with that name?
So Kyniska, it's a women's specialty run coaching business, and I'm very into symbolism. So when I was looking for names, I was like, well, who can I name this after? And so Kyniska is the Spartan princess who was the first woman to win a gold medal at the ancient Olympic Games in 390 BC. And so she was a chariot racer. You know, back then women didn't run. Women really didn't play sports back then.
I was going to say.
Yeah, the ancient Olympics was all about the men. And even the modern Olympic Games, which started in 1896, it was mostly men back then. And so I wanted to name it after her. And so she was a chariot horse racer. And so you know, I love the symbolism of it and what it means for women's sports. And so I named the business after her. So we focus all on women. Understand that's another area of interest I have, is women's physiology and what it means for their training and their racing performance. Because most women, they do the same workouts men do. A lot of them train with the men. They don't organize their training around their menstrual cycle and take into account all the things that they have to deal with that men never have to deal with. You know, menopause, the menstrual cycle, pregnancy, all those things are different for women. And so the training should be tailored to that. And most women don't plan their training around their own physiology. Most women aren't even aware of it. And so I started this coaching company that focuses on women.
So if someone was watching, a female, and she decided, you know what, whatever age, whatever fitness level, she's going to go ahead. You know what, this guy has me interested. I'm going to go ahead and I want to become a runner. What is, besides for the obvious, when you put this new program and it's about women running and their physiology, how do you train them different? Like how would somebody say, okay, what would make it so much different for me besides for the obvious? Well, how do you go into it?
Well, the first thing is to plan it out based on the woman's menstrual cycle. The menstrual cycle is the, you know, that's the symbol for what makes a woman different. And it's the hormones through the menstrual cycle, progesterone, mostly estrogen, but it's the effects of estrogen and progesterone. You know, that's what makes a woman a woman. So the menstrual cycle is the symbol of what makes a female compared to a male. That's the major difference. And so the first step would be to plan out the training based on the menstrual cycle. Have a woman chart her menstrual cycle starting on day one, and then training and then understanding how you feel at different times of the month, because there are going to be differences. Estrogen is a very powerful hormone. It's a lot of runner-friendly hormone, and so times of the month when estrogen is high, that's really good for endurance.
Okay.
So like after the period is over, the few days of the period, then estrogen is on the rise for the following 2 weeks until you hit ovulation. And then estrogen will drop quickly, and then it'll rise again in the middle of the next phase. So the menstrual cycle can be divided into two major phases: the follicular phase, where estrogen is dominating, and then the luteal phase, where progesterone is then dominating. And so the first half of the cycle is really beneficial for women, especially for long endurance, because estrogen has a lot of different physiological effects that improve endurance, that make women good at endurance. And that's why we see that if you compare men and women for races from 100 meters all the way up to the ultra marathon, from 100 meters up to the marathon, there's about a 10-11% difference in the best male runners compared to the best female runners. But then when you get to very long races, like ultra marathon, something longer than a marathon, the performance difference shrinks. Women are only about 5% slower than men. And sometimes women even win the race outright, and they even beat the best men. So the longer the race, the better women are. And it's because of how estrogen affects metabolism that women rely more on fat and less on carbohydrate. And carbohydrate is what's limiting. That's what makes people hit the wall in the marathon. Everybody hears about hitting the wall.
Crash.
People run out of carbohydrate. But women are better at utilizing fat for longer and not relying on carbohydrate. And so that's why very long races, where the speed is slower and you can get by relying more on fat, that's why those races favor females. And so you can, when you understand this, you can plan the training around that. And so, and that's how women can really, get their optimal performance, is pushing the pace when estrogen is high, backing off when estrogen is low and progesterone is dominating, because progesterone does some of the opposite things that estrogen does. And so when you understand that, you can plan the training in concert with the menstrual cycle so that women can really get the most out of their performance and their training.
I find this fascinating.
It is.
I don't know. I mean, it's like one of those things. It's just, wow, that makes so much sense. But yet I never even thought of that until listening to you right now, which is crazy.
Most women don't really think about their own physiology and their menstrual cycle and how things change with menopause. Because when you have menopause, then you don't have estrogen. One of the other big issues of estrogen is the protective effect on bones. And that's why we see when a lot of women lose their menstrual cycle, they get a stress fracture, because estrogen now has dropped and they don't have that protective effect. So more than anything else, to protect bones, estrogen is very important. And so any condition that lowers estrogen level, so pre-puberty, the loss of the menstrual cycle, post-menopause, all those times in a woman's life when estrogen is low, puts her at a greater risk of a stress fracture when she's doing all of the training. And so that too is a thing to understand when you're planning the training, because sometimes women do lose their menstrual cycle when they train a lot and they don't consume enough calories. And that's not necessarily bad. It's bad in terms of if you want to get pregnant, because you're not going to be able to get pregnant. But in terms of your training, you have to know that, because then you've got to do everything else you possibly can to protect your bones so that you don't get a stress fracture when you continue to train. And that's why we see, stress fractures are so common among college runners, because the coaches are training their athletes and they are oblivious to what's going on. They have no idea which athletes have a menstrual cycle, which athletes don't. They don't know who's at risk for a stress fracture and who's not. And yet they still keep increasing the training load. And that's why all these college female runners get stress fractures. It's a very common thing among college runners.
Wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating how the physiology, but that's what it goes back to what we were talking about before, that this is a very physical sport. It's all physiology, it's all science. And for women, it's a lot more complex, but there's beauty in that complexity. And, that's what made me write the book, Running for Women. It's been almost 10 years since that book came out. And, I've been fascinated by this for a very long time, because it just makes the art of training much more interesting. For a guy, can plan the training. It doesn't really have to change. It can be more static, because men don't have to deal with this fluctuation of hormones month to month like women do. And so, the training of women is absolutely fascinating. I love it.
So if, say, you know, you go and you get blood work done, you realize maybe some of those levels are low, because that does just drop. Some people they're low, some people it's with age, you know, due to other things. So if you were doing injections or supplements for those hormone deficiencies, would it still affect you the same way naturally? That would get you that benefit in running?
Yeah, it can, and that's why like a lot of women who lose their menstrual cycle, one of the things that they can do is to take a hormone supplement or to take the pill. Like I've coached a lot of runners who go on oral contraceptives, which gives them estrogen, and so that's a way to protect the bones. But it'll only work if estrogen is normally low. Like if someone has normal estrogen and they're taking estrogen from the outside, whether it's a hormone replacement or as a pill, then it's not going to confer any extra benefits.
Okay.
But if there's low estrogen and then they do hormone replacement therapy or they take oral contraceptives, then it does have a benefit. So yeah, that's why it's important to get your hormone levels checked and to know where you are at all times, because then you know what needs to be done to protect your bones and to train appropriately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just, wow, that's remarkable. And you have quite a team for this venture with the women training. You've got amazing people, excuse me, working with those who become part of it. So if someone is really interested, really just wants to train as a woman and use her body to the best of her ability, walk them through, you know, getting started with you. And how do they do this?
Well, you just go to KyniskaRunning.com and we have a great advisory board and great coaches on the staff. And you know, my hope is to make this a platform. I'm going to grow this to over 20 coaches over the next couple of years and make this a platform for how women should train. I want this to be the model. I want, you know, women runners to come to us to get the information, to get the coaching. So yeah, I mean, just check out the website, and if you want to hire a coach, then you know we're happy to pair you up with a coach, and so you can train to you know meet your potential as a female.
And it doesn't matter where they live. You could do this all online.
Yeah, it's all online.
You speak with your coaches.
Yeah, we have an in-person coach option if somebody hires a coach who happens to live where they live. But yeah, the coaches are all over. We have one coach in India, so yeah, they're all over.
Wow, that's just remarkable. So I will definitely, everybody, whatever, you know, we speak about today, the books, the programs, of course, I'll make sure everybody's linked up so you can reach him, follow him, talk to him, contact him in any way that you need to, if this is a direction you want to go. So you also have REVO₂LUTION REVO₂LUTION running.
Yeah, I call it revolution, but the 2 is in there because it's an acronym for run economy, VO2 max, and lactate threshold, which are the 3 physiological factors that influence running fitness and performance. So I created the word out of an acronym.
Okay.
But we call it revolution because it's a little awkward with the 2 in there. But the 2 is in there for a reason because it means something. So again, I'm all into symbolism. When I come up with names for things, I want it to mean something. And so the certification program is a great, thorough program all about running. So it's for coaches and trainers, people who want to train other runners. And so it's the most thorough running program on the market. We cover everything that a trainer or a coach would need to know about running for all different levels of runners, the biomechanics, the physiology, the training, what it means to be a coach. I go, you know, beyond the science and talk about how to develop a coaching philosophy and you know what it means to be a coach and the role of a coach and all those things. So yeah, I wanted to come up with a program that really addresses everything that somebody would need to be able to coach somebody to run, whether it's in a team setting or an individual setting or an online setting. So yeah, I'm very proud of that program. I started about 6 years ago and I've been able to teach the course all over the world. I'm very happy about that and it's been exciting.
That's congratulations. I think you've really, I have to tell you, you say you looked into the science of the writing books and different programs, and you've really nailed the science. It's, at first I thought it was, you know, you were just running, but you are really into, like you said, the body mechanics and just the way running affects you on the inside to make you a better runner on the outside. And I've never, ever heard anybody, even my friends who have been running like all of their lives, even talk about what you've talked about today. I think it's remarkable.
For me, I mean, this has been a passion since I was a kid. And yeah, like I said, it put me on a yellow brick road. So and I studied biomechanics in exercise physiology in college and grad school, and I'm lucky I was able to rub elbows with some of the best scientists in the world in this field, and so now I get to call them my colleagues, and so yeah, it's been great, and the opportunities that I've had to be able to study this and immerse myself in this is, I'm very grateful for the opportunities I've had to do this.
Yeah, and you've competed at a very, very high level. You've won a silver medal, correct?
Yeah, that was in the quote Jewish Olympics, so the Maccabiah Games in Israel. That was one of the toughest races I've ever run. It was Israel in July. Ran a half marathon with my teammates, and that was tough. That was one of the toughest races I've ever run. But yeah, I mean, as a kid, like I said, I started out as a sprinter, and I was quite good when I was very young. I mean, I was really good. But then as I got older, I realized that the reason I was so good at such a young age was because I physically matured very early. I hit puberty pretty young. I mean, I started shaving when I was 12 years old. I already had like a little mustache in 8th grade.
Wow.
And that's why, so I had a lot of testosterone when I was a kid. And that's why I was so good. And then as I got older, everybody else started, when they hit puberty, they caught up to me. And so even though I had these fancy Olympic dreams when I was really young, like when I was 13, 14 years old, as I got older, I mean, I was never even close to that level. And so, yeah, I never became the runner, the athlete that I wanted to be, even though I thought maybe it was possible when I saw how good I was in middle school. But, unfortunately, you can't control the talent. And so it bothers me that I never, because the Olympics, I mean, I've been watching the Olympics these last 2 weeks. I mean, I think the Olympics is the best thing we have in this world, and how it brings the whole world together. And, I've always loved the Olympics. That's probably my biggest passion. But if you don't have the talent yourself, I think the next best thing is to be able to coach somebody who does. And so, that's my goal, is to be able to coach somebody who has that immense amount of talent, who can get to that level. So even though I still run, I still race, I still enjoy it, but, I never became the level of runner I wanted to be. But I still love it. I mean, I still love racing on the track, even though I'm a lot slower now than I was when I was a teenager.
Oh,
but
yeah.
it still brings me a lot of joy to go out and run as fast as I possibly can. I just absolutely love it. I love the intensity of it. I love the racing. It's been a love affair my whole life.
I think it's great. So do you go out looking for runners to train to try to get them to the Olympics? Do you want people to contact you? How? Because I definitely see if you got a hold of somebody, you're taking them places.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of both. I mean, to get to that level, it's a little different, because you got to be in the right place at the right time. I mean, a lot of we kind of have a feeder system in the U.S., our college system, and so a lot of our Olympians come through the college ranks. And I used to be a college coach. I'm not right now. I'm open to it again if the right opportunity presents itself. But yeah, so it's kind of hard to find those diamonds in the rough, especially when you're not coaching at a big time Division I university, because that's usually where they come from. But yeah, I mean, I would love to have the opportunity to coach an Olympian someday. I've coached a couple people to the Olympic marathon trials, but I've never coached an Olympian yet. But I know it'll happen. I just have to be patient and then find that person who has the potential.
Yes, I definitely think it will.
It will happen at some point in my career. Yeah.
So do you have another book idea? I know you're just working with the new company now. What's next for you?
Yeah, I just had a book that came out last month on periodization. So it's the organization of the training program. I had to put the training program together, so different models of how to do that throughout the year. And then I just submitted a book to the publisher that will come out next year. It's based on a TED Talk I was supposed to give right when the pandemic hit. I'm waiting to give the TED Talk still, because it's been postponed a couple of times. But this whole notion of remembering that we are animals first, and that the human experience is physical. A lot of people, we hear a lot, especially with social media, we hear a lot about working on our insides and working on our mental aspect of our life. And I've always looked at it from a different approach. We're physical animals first. Every single thing we do, every single day is physical. We have all these physical urges we have to attend to. Why do we have to sleep 8 hours a day? Why do we have to eat multiple times a day? It's to keep our bodies alive. Life is physical. It's not mental. It's not psychological. It's physical first. And if we work on our outside body first and train our outside body, that changes us on the inside. It makes us mentally tougher. It improves our psychological outlook on life. And there's plenty of research on that to show that the physical leads the body leads the brain. That's how the brain evolved. The brain did not evolve first. The body evolved first. And it's the way our body interacts with our environment. That's what changed our brain. And that's how our brain became what it is today. And that's what separates us from every other animal. But physiologically, we share a physiology and anatomy with many, many other animals. We're no different in that regard. And you look at what other animals do and the physical life that they lead. And so the whole idea for the book is about working from the outside in, work on your physical being first, and that changes you on the inside. So that'll come out in April.
That sounds incredible. And what do you have? Is there a title? Can you give us a T?
The title is Work Out. So I emphasize the word out, work out. The subtitle is The Revolutionary Method of Creating a Sound Body to Create a Sound Mind. So I play on that sound mind, sound body idea.
Okay.
Body to create a sound mind.
And when should people expect to see that out on the shelves and ordering?
Yeah, it's already on Amazon, but
Oh, it is? Okay.
That book will be out next April.
Okay. Well, I will make sure. I think I have the link to your books. Is it on there?
Yeah, it should be on there. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I have to tell you, Dr. Karp, I just want to ponder on half the stuff you said today, because it's running in a whole different way. It truly is the science and the scientific way of running that I've never heard, explained, written about, talked about. I think it's remarkable. I think it's incredibly exciting. And I am so glad I had this opportunity to learn it and hear it from you and have the chance to talk to you about it.
Oh, thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. It's great.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Karp. I am looking forward to what the future holds. And one day when you are coaching an Olympic athlete, I'd be like, hey, that guy was on my podcast.
I look forward to that day.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having you on Shannon Confidential.
Thank you so much.
I love my new Anvo sheet set. It's a 4-piece set, 2 beautifully embroidered pillowcases, fitted sheets, 16-inch pockets. They fit right around my mattress so well, and a regular flat sheet. They are so soft to the touch. They feel absolutely fantastic. When we slept on them, I could not get over just how much cooler I felt. I felt just taken care of, just a warm hug all over me. They are so comfortable. I highly recommend the Anvo sheets. You're going to absolutely love them. The craftsmanship, the embroidery, just the feel of the microfiber. They are wonderful. Thank you so much, Anvo.